Hi everyone, today we are looking at a specific type of question that involves both direct and inverse proportion. Let's jump right in. It says 5 men can paint 2 houses in 4 days. And part A says 10 men can paint 2 houses in how many days? And so let's first try to look, okay, 5 men now becomes 10 men, so the number does change here. 2 houses remains the same, so I don't have to worry too much about that. Number of days will change, presumably. Since I change the number of men, number of days is going to change. So we see men changes, days changes. So let's try to find the relationship between those two. So let's think. Okay, 5 men of 4 days. If I have more men helping out to paint, will the number of days drop or increase? You have more people helping you paint, it's going to be faster. So the number of days is going to drop. If you have fewer men painting, very, very few men painting, those few men are going to work really hard and they're going to have to paint for longer and many more days. So number of men increase. If the number of men increases, number of days decreases. Number of men decreases, number of days increases. It's the opposite. They are therefore inversely proportionate. Now we've established that relationship, then we can say, okay, from 5 men become 10 men, we have to multiply by 2. That's how we got there. And since it's multiplying by 2 and number of days is inversely proportionate to the number of days, this therefore will be divided by 2, and the answer is 2 days. So 10 men can paint 2 houses in 2 days, in half the time, right? Because you double the number of men helping you half the time. That makes sense. Now let part B. Let's look at part B. 10 men. Okay, so we see, okay, now men has no change, so we don't have to worry about that. Houses has changed, okay, and number of days has changed also. So let's look. For the relationship between houses and days, so let's see, houses and days. If you have more houses to paint, will it take more days? Yeah, you have to paint more houses. If you have fewer houses to paint, then yeah, you won't spend so much time. So houses increases, number of houses increases, number of days increases. Number of houses decreases, number of days decreases. Therefore, they are directly proportionate. And then once we've established that relationship, we look at from 2 to 6, we multiply by 3. Therefore, over here, we also multiply by 3. Yeah, so direct proportion means if one goes up, the other one goes up. So if you multiply by 3, you also multiply by 3. So in this case, we had 2 days, right? So it's 2 times 3, 6 days. And that's how you find the answer. And this is another question that is a very, very similar concept, just using a different context. 7 taps fill 3 tanks in 35 minutes. 9 taps fill 3 tanks in how many minutes? So once again, we see what has changed. Okay, taps has changed, tanks remain the same, minutes has changed. So we need to find relationship between taps, since that has changed, and time, since that has changed. So taps, you have more taps, less time, right? You have more taps pouring in water, it's going to fill up faster. If you have fewer taps, very, very few taps, then yeah, those few taps will have to run for a longer time. Inversely proportionate. Then we see, okay, how do I get from 7 to 9? I think the easier way to look at it is you first find one tap. One tap. Okay, and of course, no change in the number of tanks. And for one tap, 35 minutes, therefore, is inversely proportionate. You have to multiply it by 7. So 35 times 7 will give me 245 minutes. Once again, take note, because they are inversely proportionate, when I divide by 7 here, I multiply by 7 here. It's the opposite. And then the next step is from 1, I can get to 9 pretty easily. I multiply by 9. And since they're inversely proportionate, I divide by 9. So 245 divided by 9 gives me 27.2 minutes if I leave to 3SF. Cool. And part B now says 9 taps fill 3 tanks in how many minutes? It asks you. So we can say, okay, taps doesn't change, okay. Tanks changes, minutes changes. So let's try to establish that. So tanks and minutes. If you have more tanks, it's going to take more time. Fewer tanks to fill, less time. So they are directly proportionate. Then let's get from 3. Let's get to 1 first. Divide by 3. It's easier. So 1 tank. So no change in taps. 9 taps fill 1 tank. And since it's directly proportionate, if I divide by 3, I will divide by 3 here as well. So 27.2 divided by 3 gives me 9.07 minutes. And then I'm ready to get from 1 tank to 5 tanks, so I multiply by 5. And I also multiply by 5 here, since they're directly proportionate. And that gives me 45.4 minutes. 3SF. Alright, so I hope you can see, once you establish the relationship between what you're changing, you can pretty easily just multiply or divide either side, to find the answer that you need to. As a bonus part C, we look at another variation of the question, and in this case, we actually don't solve for the time. So far, we've been solving for time. How many minutes? How many minutes? In this case, we fix the number of minutes, and we ask you to solve for something else. So let's start with the question again. 7 taps fill 3 tanks in 35 minutes, same as just now. And now they're saying, I still have 7 taps, but right now, how many tanks can I fill in 90 minutes? Right? That's quite a reasonable question. You're saying, okay, instead of running it for 35 minutes, I'm going to let the 7 taps run for 90 minutes. How many tanks can I actually fill up? So don't worry, actually the process of solving is pretty similar. We compare taps, number, no change. Tanks, yes, there's a change there. 35 minutes now changes to 90 minutes. So we really just have to determine the relationship between the two numbers that have changed, tanks and minutes. And so we think, okay, tanks, if you have more tanks, more minutes, right? It will take longer to fill up. Fewer tanks, fewer minutes, not as long to fill up. So they are directly proportionate. And then the process is really the same. And so we say, okay, from 35 minutes, I need to get to 90 minutes. I don't know how to do that, maybe. So let's get to 1 minute first. So I divide by 35 so that I can get to 1 minute. And on this side, I will also divide by 35. And for right now, I'll just leave it in fraction form. 3 over 35 tanks. Right, and it's the same, 7 taps, no change. And then from here now, I want to say, how do I get from 1 minute to 90 minutes? I can say, I multiply by 90. And then I can just multiply by 90. And so the answer over here is simply 3 over 35 multiplied by 90. Which gives me 7.71 tanks in 3SF. So if I leave the 7 taps running for 90 minutes, it's going to fill up 7.71 tanks. There you go.